The other day, me and my wife were sitting down to have Chinese food. And I opened up my fortune cookie after I was done eating my meal, and it said, "Conquer your fears, otherwise, your fears will conquer you." Well, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And a lot of people are stopped from doing things because of fear of what people might think of them, people might say about them. And I can fully understand that because I don't care how many people say, I don't care what people think about me. You care about what people think about you. Or you would just live your life like you should. And I'm going to tell you a little story about a gentleman that I know. And hopefully you can relate to what I'm going to talk to you about. And hopefully you can understand what this gentleman was going through. It's a gentleman I used to work with. We're just going to call him Bob so nobody can say, oh, it was so-and-so. And he put a lot of work and a lot of effort into learning how to sell notes. I don't know what they are. I think they're banknotes or something like that, but it wasn't any of my concern. And he probably spent 6 months trying to learn it. And then I bumped into him one day and I said, "How you doing?" He says, "Well, I've graduated and I'm ready to start doing things." I said, "That's great." I says, "What's going on from here?" He goes, "Well, I'm still studying." So, I'd see him at lunchtime and he'd have his little laptop open and his little books, and he would make full use of his lunchtime and study, and learn and do everything he could possibly do, even look at YouTube videos. And then, a couple of weeks went by again, and I asked him, "Well, how you doing?" And he says, "I'm doing pretty good." I says, "So what's your goal?" He says, "I'd like to make, I plan on making $100,000 this year, extra." I said, "Okay, well, can I show you a little secret?" I says, "Well, what do you mean?" I says, "Do you want to believe in manifestation?" He said, "Yeah." So I took a $1 bill out of my pocket and I wrote 5 zeros after the one and I handed it to him and I told him, "Here, hang this up on your mirror so you can see it every morning and believe that you can do it and focus on that. And in a year or 2 years, when you decide to actually knuckle down, you will generate your $100,000. He said, "Well, I want to do it by the end of the year." I said, "Well, good luck." It was really the beginning of the year. So as time went on, I bumped into him. I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm getting along." And I says, "Well, how badly do you want this?" He goes, "I want it bad. I want it for my family." I says, "Well, have you talked to your wife?" He goes, "Huh?" I says, "You need to sit down and you need to talk to your wife and you need to tell her that, honey, this is what I'm planning on doing." She knew what she was planning to do, but you need to really tell her, "Look, I'm going to come home. I'm going to take an hour and a half to 2 hours out of our time and invest it into our future." And he said, "Yeah, I better go home and tell her that." She knows what I'm doing, but she doesn't understand that I'm actually going to take up some of her time. So a couple of weeks went by again, and I asked him how he's doing, and he says, "I'm doing pretty good." I says, "Well, what's your hang up?" He goes, "Well, I got to make my phone calls." I said, "Okay, well, when are you going to start making your phone calls?" "Well, this, that, and everything else." Hemmed and hawed, and like most people do. So finally I said to Bob, I says, "Here, do you want a word of advice?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, Bob, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Here's what you need to do. When can you make phone calls?" He goes, "Well, they're supposed to be in the middle of the day when everybody is around." And I said, "Okay, well, you work the middle of the day." He goes, "Yeah." I says, "First off, what is your priority? Is your family your priority or this job your priority?" He goes, "My family is my priority. That's what I'm doing this for, so I don't have to be here the rest of my life." I said, "Okay, Bob." I says, "Here's what you got to do. You got to do it. Your life is going to get uncomfortable." I said, "But here's what you got to do. You've got to change your shift to a third or an early first shift so you can get on the phones between the hours of noon and 4. So you can call these people." "Oh, yeah, I got to do that." I said, "No, you got to really do it. And I hate to also burst your knuckles or burst your bubble. You also are going to need to get a little bruised up. You're going to have to get beat up. You're going to have to go home. You're going to have to dedicate 2 hours of your day and not say, 'Oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow.' There is no tomorrow. You're going to have to do it today. You didn't even get your knees skinned or your your nose broken or a black and blue eye or any of that. I didn't mean any physical damage to him, but I mean, he was afraid. He's afraid that of rejection and fear and everything else, but he read all the books. He did everything he should do. He knew the information. He was just afraid. So, long way short, time went by. I lost track of Bob. Bob disappeared. And about 6 months later, Bob calls me and says, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." And I'm sitting there going, "Bob? Bob who? You know, I haven't." And he goes, "Oh, I'm Bob from XYZ. I said, "Oh, how you doing? It's been a long time." He goes, I got to thank you for something." I says, "I hope everything's okay." He says, "That little conversation you said I need to get home, get over my fears, and not be worried about what people think. If my main goal is my family, and to go home and knuckle down and give it 6 months and work it and really change my life." He goes, "It really did change my life." I said, "Well, that's great." He says, "Believe it or not, I made $1 million." I says, "You made $1 million?" I said, "I only put $100,000 on your card." Because I made $1 million due to you. And now, some of you out there are probably saying, "Well, did he give you any money?" Honestly, he didn't deserve to give me any money. I didn't do the work. I didn't go to school. I didn't make the phone calls. I didn't sacrifice any of my family life for him. I just basically kicked him and told him, "You need to get out there for your family and go do the job." So what I'm trying to tell you guys out there is, if you're afraid to do something, do it. Life is short. You don't know when it's going to be over, but make sure it aligns with your family. Family life is one of the most important things you can have. So you have to align it with your family. Because if you're coming home and you're saying, "Honey, I'm going to do this," and your wife's like, "Well, honey, we need to do this," it's not going to work out well. If your wife knows, or your family knows, that this is what you're going to do, they'll go, "Okay, Bob's going to come home, and Bob's going to lock himself in that room for 2 hours, and Bob is going to make the phone calls, and Bob's going to do what he needs to do." You need to be able to do that too. So this is Trash Can Guy wishing you the best of luck, and hopefully you can tell me a great story too, where one day you've made a lot of money because you did not let your fears conquer you. This is Trash Can Guy signing out. Have a great day. Thank you